So we have some awesome interviews, Travis, 3 really great practices. So let's go through them one by one. First up, we got AJ and Jeff. Looking forward to hearing about awesome results, especially around niche marketing with these 2.
Yeah, AJ, Jeff, we have you on?
I'm here.
There's Jeff. Or I'm sorry, there's
nope,
AJ.
That's AJ. Yep.
I'll hear about that later.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
No. Oh.
So got these guys. They're up there in the Pittsburgh, PA area. We worked with them a couple of years, and they're awesome guys. First and foremost, they love implementing. They're very proactive. They're very leaderful. And one of the things that they've been working on in the last really year, maybe before that, but I think it's starting to take off, is a niche around working with CPAs. And as far as, you know, getting referrals from them. So, AJ, I'd love to hear from you. How did that kind of get started, and how did you choose to work in that area?
So it's something I've worked on for a really long time. It's probably been 10 years in the making. And, you know, it doesn't take 10 years to develop, so that's not why it took 10 years. I just kind of stumbled around and was struggling to figure out how to connect and what the value proposition was for the CPA. And once I figured that out, it's now we've got another one on the line here in a pretty short period of time. So the original idea started with it's expensive to buy financial advisory practices, you know, 2.5 to 3.5 times recurring revenue. CPA practices are cheap to buy. So if I could find a way to take the assets that sit inside a CPA's practice, but I buy a CPA practice for 70 to 80 cents on the dollar, it'd be a lot cheaper way to get the assets. And so I started in that direction, and then, you know, it just kind of evolved from there. And what we have now is a lot more efficient than, you know, the 8 years I wasted before I actually put this thing into place and I would start bearing fruit.
That's not true, AJ. You had to go through those 8 years to get to those 2.
Yeah, absolutely. But not everybody else needs to do that. They can take the shortcut that we figured out at this point.
There we go. That's why we have you on here. So then tell us a little bit about how you set up the one that you have going right now.
Right, so the value proposition starts with the CPA and them understanding, you know, the economics of their practice, and that they kill themselves for 4 months out of the year, making a relatively small amount of money on a per client basis. And, you know, they've got to do a tax return again next year to do the same thing. And so they've got this 4 months of hell that they go through every year. And they don't really know what it's going to look like until they get to that point. And again, this is for CPA firms that are more focused on the individual client, the individual tax preparer, as opposed to CPA firms that do audit work and have more year-round business and whatnot. So talk to them about that, and then really go into the value proposition of what each client is going to get as a result of working for them, and how the CPA industry is likely to evolve, in that they're slowly going to get picked away at, and eventually, you know, it's going to either go to higher end firms that are doing complicated work and charging $2,000 and $3,000 as a minimum for a tax return, to who can do it as cheap and as fast as possible, like H&R Blocks or Jackson Hewitt or things like that. And saying there's got to be a way to differentiate yourself. And what clients want is a more comprehensive, all-inclusive solution where their professionals are communicating with one another. And so what we're suggesting you do is, from the client's perspective, you tell them you partnered with an outside firm that's going to come in, and together we're going to review your tax return to figure out how we can add value beyond just preparing that tax return. So what are things that we can do after tax season to lower your tax exposure, to make you more financially efficient, while also giving us, your CPA, a better view into your overall financial picture, so that the knowledge we have inside our head can be better applied to you, our tax preparing client. And so that's the value that we lay out there. And the way we do this is through a revenue share. It's easy to set up through Ameriprise, where essentially what you do is the CPA firm sets up an RIA, and then they can receive a percentage of any active 40 business, which is financial plans and managed money. And so for us, they get 20%. So anything that comes through that referral relationship goes right into that, and they're getting recurring revenue. Now, the challenge is most CPAs don't know how to refer business, and even if they want to, they don't know what to say to their clients to get them to take action. So what we've done is we've actually taken the process and put the ball in our court, where we do a data sort on the CPA's firm. Well, basically, we take every tax return they have, and it's easy to do within their software. You take every tax return that they have, and you export it to Excel. And row 2 would be the first client, and it would have every line from their tax return, except we strip out client name, we strip out address, and date of birth and social security number. So we pull out the stuff that would be sensitive information, and we're left with a sheet that tells us every line on the tax return, and it goes the whole way down. So we can look at their entire practice, and we then sort by different columns on there. So people with high interest and dividend income, people with high adjusted gross income. And we go through the whole tax return and essentially sort and then highlight the people we want to meet. And so this particular practice does about 2,000 tax returns. We've identified about 400 people within that group that we want to meet. And then we prioritize, and we reach out and do a 1040 review with them. In that 1040 review, it's an advisor from our team and the CPA. And the CPA starts off by going through the 1040 and asking some questions until there's enough back and forth that the door opens, and the advisor then jumps in and kind of says, well, it's obvious to me what's missing here is the glue that pulls all this information together. And we talk about the value of a financial plan and how a financial plan helps their CPA do a better job for them. It helps their investment professional do a better job for them. It helps their attorney or estate planner do a better job for them. And it's one sheet of music that every professional in their financial life can sing from. And we walk them through that there's two ways we can do it. We can do a comprehensive plan, and this is the cost, or we can do a foundational plan, which is more of a sketch and may not get us everything we need, but it's a good start. And then a majority of the people that we identify and we do these calls with say yes, and they move forward in the process. And then we just take them down a normal financial planning road, which, ultimately leads to them moving assets and doing business.
Wow, that's a pretty systematic approach is what I'm hearing. I'm also hearing it's a very much collaborative approach, especially in front of the clients, where you're combining your expertise with the CPA, really working in their best interest. So very, very, very cool. So Jeff, from your end, yep. I'm sorry, go ahead, AJ.
I was just going to say, I mean, the success we're starting to see from this is obviously the buy-in from the CPA firm. I did a call about 2 weeks ago with one of the partners of the CPA firm with a potential prospect, and it was such an easy transition from what they do as a CPA to what we do as a financial planner, because the CPA was on the call and she had already, quote unquote, pre-sold us. And, it was a great call because there were some questions that the accountant had to ask, or had to answer rather, and then things obviously that we can help them with. So the key, one of the many keys, is having the buy-in and the CPA firm understanding what we really do for the clients too.
Well, and I like the way you guys take it by the bull by the horns too, because it sounds like you put the onus on you to make sure they understand how to position you. And so, that's around messaging, obviously, whether it's, orally, when they're verbally, or things in writing. So I think that's an excellent approach, because I see that fail a lot, especially when working with other professionals, is we're just so dang happy that they're going to, oh yeah, you're going to refer me business, great. But there's nothing like this system in place, and there's no coaching of, really how to position you. So very cool. AJ, you were going to say something?
Yeah, the other cool thing that we've experienced is, as the CPA firm has started to understand how this actually works, both from a process standpoint, but from an economic standpoint, we've seen some pretty cool things happen. One of their bigger clients, as far as their perception of the assets that client has, was coming in, and they wanted to leave nothing to chance. They wanted to make sure that everything worked with this client. So what they told the client was they think that the service that we're offering and providing is so valuable that the CPA firm will deduct the cost of their financial plan from their tax preparation fee next year. Essentially, the accounting firm is willing to pay for that client to get a financial plan done for us because they know that if that client engages with us in that relationship, that client's not going anywhere from either firm short of us doing something really stupid. And second of all, they figured out that what they were going to lose in revenue in that first year by paying for the financial plan would be pennies compared to what they were going to get in perpetuity for doing nothing and allowing us to manage the assets long term. So it clicked with them after just a couple of months and starting to see the monthly flows that they were getting just from a handful of these referrals converting. So, you know, they're not dumb people. Once they see the money flow, and then the motivation really starts to kick in.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're leveraging the relationship, so that's what they're doing, and they're seeing that it's working, and that's why they're willing to make an investment in this, knowing that it sounds like they get the longer term ROI. Excellent, John. Any questions or insights for AJ and Jeff before we move on to our next guest?
Yeah, I thought it was great to hear. I think just the insights for everyone should definitely be that there should be a process associated with this. It's not an easy silver bullet. You know, as you heard AJ say, it took a lot of work. It took years to get to this point. But I love the concept that you're right. The CPA practices go from much lower multiples, kind of a great in there. But then how to make that transition a leap to getting people excited about that 20% of the financial planning fees and the asset management fees. It really can be great. It's hard to get people there. So I love your persistence on this. I think it's awesome, and I think that's a big thing everything should take away is these guys never gave up. They've gone after it, and it's really working now. It's awesome to hear.
Yeah, they have a second one in the hopper here, and I think a lot of it has to do with what AJ, you and Jeff were able to do with this first one. You got a good story to tell, and I think as that story gets stronger, it'll be easier for other CPA firms to see the value in setting up something similar like this. So kudos to you guys. I know, AJ, you got to go here at the top of the hour. Jeff, if you can hang on, we might have some time for Q&A at the end. Yep. So love to hear from you guys. But thank you, guys.
Thanks, Travis. Yeah, I'll stay on.
Thanks, Travis.